It is Friday, April 10th, around noon. This is a weird song. I say that probably every day now, but I just put it together and it changed. Originally, it was going to be like a love type of song, and that plays into this at the end. It was going to be like an attempt of a love song. I believe there's a story about Led Zeppelin where somebody asked the guy, "Can you write a love song?" And that popped in my head a little when I was just starting this recording. I forget what the story is. I kind of want to look it up so I know the truth about it. Who challenged Led Zeppelin to write a love song? I believe that's a story, or I'm going to have to start this recording again if I'm completely making this up. But let's see if Google has something to add to this. Who challenged Led Zeppelin to write a love song? I remember hearing that because I guess it was the early days when they were just more psychedelic hard rock stuff. To write a love song. I forget why this came up, but it's a vague memory that I have. Does anything help me here? All right, George Harrison. George Harrison, according to accounts, so who knows, told Led Zeppelin drummer John Bonham that the band never did ballads. So in response, Jimmy Page wrote the Rain song, which appeared on Houses of the Holy in 1973. So that's pretty cool. I guess they were just fucking around like that, and that came up in the conversation since the Beatles kind of made their whole image based on like a boy band love song thing in the beginning, at least. So I'll include the Rain song since I just mentioned that story. It does play a part in this because I never try to write love songs. It's not my way of interacting with music. And yeah, it's just all been said before. I was going to try to write something about that, and it was just not going to be a believable thing because I've never had that experience in my life. So it's like, I'm only going to write about certain things that I think I could pull off believably. But I'm contradicting myself because love songs are on the radio, they make money for people. So I'm in that era of my life where I want to just write anything, but I don't have that type of sentimentality to write some romantic ballad because I just don't really enjoy that type of shit. I'm sure there's some that I would like, and I've shared a couple in the past. I've shared a couple in the past. When I wrote Seeds of Anarchy, that punk rock screenplay in 2021, 2020, I was like, I had a scene at the end, which was a wedding, and I included that song, Lady in Red, which was like that big hit in the 90s. They played it like at every fucking wedding I ever went to as a kid. And yeah, it's actually enjoyable. I think it could be cool if like Me First and the Gimme Gimmes covered that song like a punk version. And because it is a catchy melody, but I don't like the sappiness of commercial love songs. Like, because that's what I remember is what I grew up on, like listening to Casey Kasem, which I'm not going to shit on that. I enjoyed that as a kid. But when I listen to that stuff now, I don't really get any reaction emotionally, or I don't even think a lot of them are good songs. The one that might be an outlier was that Bryan Adams for Robin Hood, because I really like the song structure and the bridge. Everything I do it for you, that one. I'm sure people use that as a wedding song. So I enjoy that one. There's a cool solo in that, and the bridge is really genius. I shared that song a while back. I forget why, but I really like that song. I get it in my head all the time. It's a very earwormy song. The Everything I Do, when Robin Hood came out back in the early 90s. That one always kind of hit the mark for me. That was a good song. And it was popular. It was all over the place. I'm sure. Yeah, it was Bryan Adams, right? Yeah. And I'll share that one too, since I'm thinking of other stuff. The way this song formed, really just a couple minutes ago, I changed course because I knew I wasn't going to be able to sing some artificial love song like that because it doesn't really fit this. Well, it could fit this album. You can get anything to fit. Like I put the Laurie Anderson spoken word kind of avant-garde track because I think it fits, but a lot of people would probably think the opposite. But that's just how it goes when you're trying to put an album together like this. So this song became something completely different over the last 10 minutes. Not to say I didn't put some time into this and some thought into the lyrics, but I wrote these lyrics in 5 minutes, so it is what it is. I had a brief recording on my phone from a couple nights ago, so I used that too for the melody. And the influences on this song is more male than female. There's still a note of that Carole King, or maybe I'm including Carole King now because I feel like she's led this entire album, so I'm just including her on every song. And she can write any type of song, or not any type of song, but so many different genres that she kind of blended into. So I'm sure she would probably put a different spin on a song like this. And I could hear a female voice singing this as well, but for some reason I heard that Teddy Pendergrass. I heard the Teddy Pendergrass, like real deep, I don't really know how else to term it, that deep voice that's very, very heavy and very emotive and very like masculine, very deep and very rooted in that soulfulness, like Otis Redding stuff. I don't know Teddy Pendergrass. I just know the Eddie Murphy when he's like making fun of him. You got from Delirious. That's probably where I heard of Teddy Pendergrass when Eddie Murphy did that stand up bit. But I listened to the Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. I think he's connected to them. The Love I Lost, was that Teddy Pendergrass? The Love I Lost. I don't know. Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. But who sings it? Yeah, features Teddy Pendergrass. So it's pretty cool. That's still a great song. I'm sure people still play that at weddings and stuff. See, I could never pull off a song like that, so I'm not going to try. But I do enjoy that. I made a post maybe a year ago about the Philadelphia sound, and I guess that's considered a part of it. And yeah, it's just that soulfulness that is kind of it puts you in a good place mentally and physically. It's just really heartwarming song. So I'll include Teddy Pendergrass and the Blue Notes, maybe that song or something else I find. David Gilmour, I included him again because I hear his guitar playing. And that's it. That's really all the influences that I've kind of come up with on this one. And yeah, it was good to be a delusional love song, but it's just too weird. And I don't think it fits this album, or it's just too weird for me to try to get through. So I kind of changed course drastically. So this song became whatever, I don't even know really, but it's called Disbelief. That's the title that I have right now. And I want it to be one of those type of soul songs that start out kind of peaceful and breezy, and then it just gets all crazy in the chorus and maybe the last verse. I made a note to make it sound very passionate. It's just the dynamics. I listened to a podcast years and years ago about the Lumineers. They're a decent band. I can dig the Lumineers. And they said when they first started, that's what they were lacking in their songwriting. They didn't have that dynamic quality to lift people up and play with people's emotions, because that's what music does. That's what good music can do. That's what good movies can do. Just like going to church, it's a whole play to make you feel some kind of emotional response. Churches use music to do that, or they use other things. They burn the incense just like any other ritual ceremony thing. And it's all designed to get emotional response from people so people can escape from their own self-centeredness and think of other stuff, I guess. Think of a higher, the higher purpose, not just their own bullshit, but the world's bullshit. So this fits the theme of this album because that's what Some Jump from Planes was really about. And yeah, it's hard to do that. It's probably easier when you're young, but then as you get older and more cynical about everything, everything's about money and people trying to scam you and all this other shit. And the puppet masters, the gatekeepers. You get a taste of that as a teenager and then you live it and you're like, all right, fuck this shit. I'm just going to create my own reality somehow. And that's kind of impossible, but it's cool to at least play in that world because it's good to have that individuality when it comes to your own belief structure. And it's not really that radical because everyone does that. Everyone interprets religion differently from household to household. Maybe there's certain beliefs that are kind of steadfast, but everyone believes something different, even within a religion. And maybe that's where this song's going. And I don't even think that's frowned upon because even though religion, there's not a lot of freedom of thought or expression within organized religion sometimes, there is some room for evolution because, yeah, religions constantly evolve from every generation forward or they're just going to die off. And that's probably that's a theme in a lot of my writing, whether it's my fictional stories or my songs like this. I probably spoke about this so many times, which goes back to another area of concern is that I'm just redundant as an artist. How many songs can you write about the same shit? Like whether it's a love song or a song about faith or a song about anything, sex. Everything's been done since the beginning of music. Everything's been done. You could build off of other people, and that's all I'm trying to do. That's why I'm being honest about everything I'm being influenced by. I want to not only thank people, but, be honest so people know that you're never going to write something original. You're never going to really have an original thought. It's almost impossible. You're going to have an original thought that no one has ever had before throughout history. Like maybe Einstein did. People like that were like kind of prophets or something. I don't know. But even that, I'm sure, he's with a community of people that kind of talk things out. But yeah, some people are unique and kind of completely, I guess you would call it a prophet, whether it's religion or science or music or something else. And that's kind of interesting too. Maybe there's a note of that in some of these lyrics. But as I'm singing this, I would say you want to kind of picture the Teddy Pendergrass voice, Otis Redding. Those are the two people I kind of point to when I want to get soulful and get real deep down and shit. Those are the two people that come to mind. In today's world, I don't know, maybe that Michael Kiwanuka guy, he's got that soulfulness and he can sing his ass off. I'm a fan of all his stuff. Maybe he's a little bit more mellow and acoustic than soulful, but he can do that too. I think he's experienced that type of stuff too. Maybe that Gary Clark guy too. He's an amazing guitar player, but he can sing pretty well too. So I'm adding more people as I go. I want to add modern artists because I tend to focus on like stuff I found from the 70s or 60s. I don't think Otis Redding lived that long, right? He was like in his late 20s when he died. So, all right, I'll add a bunch of things before I post this to Substack later. I should be able to finish this album today. I got this song and then one more after this, because I don't think I'm going to have any other ones for this album. 8's a good number. Lately, I've been focusing on shorter albums that are like 8, maybe 10 songs. I don't think I've done any lately or in a long while that had more than 10 songs, because I spoke about it yesterday. I'm the hit and run artist that just wants to think of a concept, write the songs, get it out to the world, which is really nobody, but at least it's going to be shared on my Substack and other places. And then just move on to the next project. There's something that I was delaying that I should have been doing, but this one is at the forefront right now because it's just something is compelling me to get these songs out. So I should be able to finish today. The only thing I would have to kind of think of later is the order of these songs, because the one I did yesterday, Some Jump from Planes, which is that very sappy, sentimental Joni Mitchell ballad. I kind of think that should be the last song, but I'm still not sure yet. I'll have to go through what is the last song right now and then see how everything flows together. And I'm always reminded of that Neil Young story that I think he did MTV Unplugged, and I don't think he liked how the order was or something, or maybe I'm thinking of something else. I might be off on this one. But I feel like Neil Young was more of a kind of obsessive about album order, but I forget the story I'm trying to think of. Obsessed. Let me see if Google helps me on this one. I don't think it will. With order of songs, I don't think it's going to help me. But speaking of Neil Young, I just listened to a podcast about Albuquerque, that song. It was pretty good. I'll share that then, since I'm talking about Neil Young. According to Google, Neil Young is famously meticulous and uncompromising regarding the sequencing and presentation of his music, viewing his albums as unbroken suites rather than collections of individual songs. Well, I agree with all that stuff. I want to say there was some story about his unplugged performance, but I really can't think of it. It was something I maybe heard in passing that I don't remember. But I'll share that Neil Young podcast since it was really good. I really love that song Albuquerque. It's just a really interesting song. And the podcast was actually really good. Just speaking of one song like that. I think it's called something like that. They just analyzed one song. And yeah, I'll share that. I listened to it maybe yesterday or the day before. So there's a lot of stuff now I'm sharing. I don't know where the influences really come from until I start doing these talks, and then they just all pour out like that. It's kind of odd, but I guess that's how the subconscious works. You don't know what's really leading your creative process until you actually put pen to paper, or well, digital pen to digital paper, whatever you want to call it. And once you get into that mode, then you can kind of see, because you're sharing it, you kind of see where your influences are coming from. So it's odd like that. While you're doing it, maybe you're not as cognizant of it. You don't realize up front where all these voices are coming from, where the melodies are being developed, but you know it's coming from somewhere. But you've listened to music for 30 years or longer, and everything kind of gets muddled together. Like, I guess that's from this, but then there's another artist that was inspired by them, but they're really going back to the roots of blues music. Like there's a lot of that technical music theory that I can't really speak more than that about. I don't know. People who go to school for music theory, I guess they have a bit of an advantage because they know that stuff, but I probably spoke of that before, that maybe it overstructures everything. Like you're taught what notes go together perfectly, and then when you go to write songs, you don't want to explore other arrangements, maybe. Or it's the opposite. Maybe you go to music theory classes and you learn about the microtonal stuff, which I never even knew what it was until a couple of days ago. Like the more raga Indian type of feel to it, that notes can bend so slightly and stuff like that, which I can't really explain more than that. This is probably why I love the drone genre, because even though I don't think it's an overly simplistic type of music, it can seem that way. And I like that. I like droning out because it's probably the type of music I want to get into more than anything. And maybe eventually I can get there. All right, let me try to sing this song before I lose my voice. It's called Disbelief. And it's pretty short. 3 verses, a chorus, and an outro. Right now, where it stands, it doesn't have a bridge or anything. So it's very simple. I would say it's a majority of it is a soul song. Disbelief. We're all just animals, worth our weight in gold, still afraid to fall. Compromise, just like history, masked within the crime, like a fog disease. I think I sang those 2 ending lines differently. Still afraid to fall, or like a fog disease. I'm not sure which one's better, but like a fog disease. Maybe that one's, I'm not sure which one I like better. Or you could just improvise it, make it up however the person likes it. So you go right into the chorus after that. Like a fog disease. 1, 2, 3, 4. If the world would hit the lights, would the mirrors redesign? Or do the answers exist inside? So that's the chorus, 3 lines. I'm not sure if you would go into an instrumental there. I feel like it's the string part, yeah. Or do the answers, 2, 3, 4, exist inside? Dun, 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 dun. So you could go into kind of an instrumental string part there. This is a shorter song. I think it might be the shortest song because it's it's not a fast pace, but it's a little bit faster than some of the other ballads. So it would probably be the most radio friendly song, about 3.5 minutes. After like a short break, a musical interlude, you go into the last verse, and this is where I feel like you should get the more passionate singing, more, not necessarily changing the key or anything. I guess maybe that's a thing that's possible, going up, like the modulation again, because I don't think I mentioned modulation throughout this entire album, so it could be a good spot for that. Or do the answers exist inside? Then you do your string part, Do 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 do. See, I have that Guns N' Roses in my head still. The once you get the Guns N' Roses like Slash solo in November Rain in your head, it's like the only melody that you wanna kind of mimic because it's so good. So fuck you, Slash. Now I have every time I try to think of something that's like a solo, because I did picture a guitar solo after the third verse, which I'm about to do. But I pictured more of like the David Gilmour blues thing. But the last couple days, because I listened to November Rain again, I just have that solo in my head like on repeat every time I try to think of something. Because, yeah, that's probably, it's got to be one of the top solos. I don't care if you like Guns N' Roses or not. It's just so powerful. So I'm not going to get pen up on how the instrumental would go or what to put there. I'm just going to leave that as an open space for something to get developed later. Verse 3, depending on how the song goes, you could go up a key or just leave it the same and just sing it in a higher, more passionate fashion where the strings continue from whatever musical up till that chorus. There wouldn't be any strings at all until whatever musical instrumentation you come up with, and then it will continue for the rest of the song. So that's the bipolar nature of this. You start out real slow and kind of swayy, just maybe just the bass and the voice and some other music. And then all the orchestration comes in either at the chorus or after the chorus. Because I would like to split it up like that, kind of a day and night type of thing. So I'm going to sing the third verse kind of the same and then see where it goes from there. Disbelief. Unlike the animals, hold the ending high, with no fear or lie. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, I just picture a real epic closing here. So it's another instrumental after that verse. Because I do like those old albums, like from the 70s and I guess the 60s too, that had that lush orchestration. You know what I'm thinking of? That I'm thinking of Chet Atkins again, because I guess he was on my brain from a couple days ago. That he produced that Skeeter Davis album. Chet Atkins did an album called Hollywood, and I bought it just because it was like $1. But the album cover was so good. Yeah, I'll share it. I used to have it on vinyl. Like when I would see a Chet Atkins album, I would buy it if it was $1, $2, because I thought it would be crazy guitar stuff. But this one was more of that lush orchestration, and I think I even spoke about it before. Produced by Dick Pierce. I'm looking at the back of the vinyl. Dennis Farnon and his orchestra. So it's almost like a Broadway musical, but it's pretty cool. It's not your typical Chet Atkins type of. Like there's green sleeves on it, right? Like that type of stuff, which is probably on so many albums from the 60s. But yeah, I think a lot of it is like musicals and Broadway plays and stuff. But it's worth a listen. Chet Atkins and Hollywood. What year is it from? I can't see it on the back of the vinyl. Probably late 60s. based on the cover. I don't know, early 60s, 1961. I'm kind of reminded of that because I got this orchestration in my head now, not just on this song, on most of the songs on this album. So that's what I'm picturing. That's a part of the singer-songwriter generation, a little bit. Well, coming from 1961, that's a far cry from, well, even though Carole King was probably writing stuff back then, like Motown stuff. That's actually an interesting question. When did Carole King write her first song? I think she was like really young. Yeah, so yeah, man. She did it like in the late 50s. She was like 17. Will You Love Me Tomorrow? That was like, she wrote that when she was like 17. That's pretty crazy. So yeah, I don't know. The reason I'm always going back in time is because of the vinyl collecting. If I didn't collect vinyl back in like 2018 time, around that time era, around that period of my life, I was just collecting vinyl. That's all I did on the weekends. And I got a pretty good collection of like 2,000 records. And of course, you're going to find stuff from the 60s and 70s. And I would just have a rule: if it was in good condition and it looked like something interesting that I never heard before, regardless of the genre, I would just buy it. Because in the back of my head, I wanted to open up a store at some point. It was like partially maybe my retirement plan, that once I retired, I could just sell records and make extra money like that. But that didn't come to fruition. But that's why I think it was helpful to me, because I learned about a lot of older stuff and weirder stuff. And yeah, I would say that's still something I would recommend doing. I still like going to thrift stores. I just don't do it anymore. But I would still do it as a hobby, because it is a lot of fun to hunt for vinyl. And a lot of people have that addiction. After that last verse, that third verse, disbelief, unlike the animals, hold the ending high, with no fear or lie. Dun, 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 dun. Like the slash solo would work there. But yeah, that would be kind of funny. Just make an album with like 12 songs, but every song has to have the slash solo from November Rain in it. Or somebody should do that. Just pick old songs, like old Beatles songs or Frank Sinatra songs, but just edit it with some kind of software and just have it like, you could have a whole YouTube channel, Slash's guitar solo in like 100 songs, and it all sounds seamless for some reason. All right, I'm starting to really ramble like an idiot. There is an ending outro to this, and it would just blend in from whatever instrumental you put after that third verse. Then there's a brief outro that kind of ends this song on a mellow note, which goes back to the original thing I said when I started this recording, that it was supposed to be a love song, but I just know I wouldn't have been able to do it as believably or even get through it, because it's just too weird for me to write stuff like that. Or maybe so you would go through the instrumental, and then at the end it would kind of pause, almost like a fade out, and then the voice would come in with no other, maybe just a piano or something. Or maybe I should have written another love song. Maybe I should have written another love song. Something like that would work. I wrote something like that in my book, that I would probably get laid all the time if I just did like an 80s cover band in my youth instead of doing other stupid shit. Like, not just for myself personally, but like the people who get into poetry or singer songwriter stuff, if they would have just done like a Bon Jovi cover band, you'd probably be getting laid all the time because there's like groupies and all. Yeah, hair metal. Bring back hair metal, damn it. Let's get a hair metal resurgence. Is that a possibility? I don't even like it, but it's just such a weird genre. Like, I don't know if that could ever come back. The 80s were so weird, man. Was that like the corporate response to rebellion? Like, okay, we don't like this punk rock stuff. Like, I'm speaking as like a record executive. Well, we don't like this punk rock stuff. That's too off the fringe or off the center. You know, that's too crazy for us. We don't like the punk rock. We don't like the hippies. We don't like hardcore stuff that's forming now. We don't like hip hop. That's angry and anti-authority. Anti-authority. We don't like that stuff. Let's create a rebellion and call it hair metal. That'll be the corporate sealed form of rebellion that we're okay with. But then even that, it got infiltrated with the whole satanic panic thing. But I can see that because it was hair metal was all about sex and reproducing, so it would sell. That's why it sold so many records. But I guess there was a different element because of the Black Sabbath side of things that it became more about the Hail Satan and all that stuff. But that's kind of funny to think about. You know. But then also, like even Twisted Sister, like we're not gonna take. They had to fight the PMRC. They weren't even that radical. They were just singing about like stupid shit. Not that I had no Twisted Sister. I only know like one of their songs. But whatever. I'm really rambling. So this song, it's a soul song. Just think of the Teddy Pendergrass flavor. Maybe I didn't really go through it as detailed as I should have, but when it comes to these instrumentation parts, like, I'm not lying, I don't know how to develop that when it comes to a string section. I can hear something in my head, but most likely it's going to be based on something I heard before, because that's just how it is. Maybe different composers, like, I never understood how the stories about young composers that are 5 years old, 5-year-old or whatever, and they can create an entire symphony. Like, where are they getting this musical knowledge from? Even the John Cale story, I think it was real. He was real young in Wales, and he had written some kind of classical piece, and he was inspired by the Rite of Spring, I guess. But maybe that's a bad example. I'm speaking of like really young kids. I guess they're taking lessons and learning all the classical masters, and that's what they're basing their stuff on. But it's just odd. Like, I think it's harder to create experimental music that tries to be different because somebody's always going to say, "Ah, this song reminds me of Jimi Hendrix. This song reminds me of whatever, whatever." And it's hard to get away from that. To be a truly unique band or artist, it's very hard, whether it's visual arts or music or cinema. Like, people always say, like, "Oh, this is in that same film category as this great director." And as I'm going through Instagram now, trying to find cool visual art, because that's pretty much all I'm looking at on Instagram, I can like notice you know, some similarities and what kind of mode people are in. Last night, I made a note to myself to watch the Finch documentary. I think his name was Howard Finch, maybe. I'll close with this since I'm talking too long. He did the REM cover for Reckoning and Talking Heads and some other stuff. I want to get his name right. He's a pretty interesting guy. If you download Tubi, then you could actually watch it. I can't think of his first name. It's kind of, yeah. I'm gonna have to. Sorry, I gotta look this up. It's pissing me off a little. Who designed REM Murmur? No, not Murmur. Reckoning. But REM does have some cool art. A lot of their. I don't know if I didn't include that on my list of favorite album covers, but they have a lot of good album covers. I can't think of the guy's first name. I want to give him credit. And yeah, it was. Okay, it's Howard, not Finch. I apologize. Howard Finster. That's his name. I just watched the documentary last night again. I watched it maybe a year or two ago. You can watch it for free on Tubi if you download it. It's maybe over an hour, but this guy's pretty cool. He was like a pastor in, I guess, in the 50s, 60s in Georgia. And then when he retired, all he did was create art for the rest of his life. He created like, I don't know, something crazy, like 40,000 pieces of art. It reminded me of the Philadelphia Magic Gardens because he created his own little artistic garden on his property, and people go there. To this day, I believe it's still there. Maybe Athens, Georgia. And yeah, it's a good documentary. I would recommend it. Why am I bringing this up? I don't know. I forget what I was talking about before this. But yeah, it was pretty cool. He's an interesting guy. He devoted his life to just, it was from a religious perspective, but he was just all about the peace and love thing. And maybe that inspired a lot of the stuff I did subconsciously, or that I'm doing right now. Because I respect stuff like that. Oh, I was talking about, different artistic genres, visual art type of artistic modes, I guess. I guess you would just say he's folk art or kind of outsider art, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, he did it for decades, I believe, and he made his deal with God was to make like 10,000 paintings, and he would number each one. And then after he was done, he's like, let me do another 40,000. So he just kept going and going. And it's a pretty crazy story. But I'm going to end it here since I'm rambling for 45 minutes. And I think you can get an idea of how this song should go. It might feel a little rushed because I just wrote the lyrics before I did this recording. I had to change course completely and kind of find a new way to present the melodies. The melody that I developed 2 nights ago stayed the same. I just had to find a new framework to present some kind of a unified concept. And I think it does work on an album like this. I could hear this being a soul song in the 70s or 60s or whatever era you want to choose. So I'm pretty happy with it. And I'll end it there. I'll try to finish the last song later today. And it's probably more of a female voice again. But even with a song like this, even though most of the people I listed were male voices, I could hear a female voice singing this. Maybe just in a different style. But there's plenty of powerful female voices that can match a Teddy Pendergrass or Otis Redding. There's plenty of soulful female voices, so maybe I'll think of somebody else. Maybe that Irma Thomas woman, because I did kind of fall in love with her music because I love the New Orleans type of thing. So maybe I'll give her love and put one of her songs on here. I think she was soul and gospel. That genre was her main thing, maybe. I think she covered well, I don't know who wrote that song, the Rolling Stones song, Time on Your Side. So, yeah, I'll pick something and I'll leave it there. Later today, I'll try to do that last song, which is more mellow, and then I'll just have to kind of put the entire album together in a post.